Naguarachamo. Hello, everybody. This is your captain speaking. Rafael Chacines no es el Capitán Rafucho. And welcome to the venture. And welcome to this Saturday afternoon live. That was very unexpected, but right now it is my time to announce there is a sports talk show that I'm announcing it. Let them speak because that's the show that I will be talking about everything about topics from football, baseball, basketball, even combat sports. I mean, this is like a new show that we're talking about from the news, analysis, and all these stats right now. So I just wanted to tell you I'm not alone because I had some special backstage, well, special guests and backstage right now because after that I was doing the special EFC with against the fans and of course with Randy. You might know that it's gonna be like one of my brothers, but he's a New York Giants fan, and of course I'm rocking it with the Slipknot chest shirt and the Las Vegas Raiders. So I know this is happening right now, but please give it a welcome for this amazing special guest. He's a New York Giant fan, but also he knows that everything about for the sports. So let's give it a round of applause for this gentleman right now. Corey, how's it going?
Hey, Raph, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good right now. So I just wanted to tell for about all these displaying right now. So that video that is showing up is UFC between Alexander Volkanovski gets to the microphone with Joe Rogan. So
Yep.
right now, let's get it for the topic between New York Giants because I know they just lost against for Las Vegas Raiders, and right now they're against Dallas Cowboys. And well, it's kind of like a very difficult for the rivalries right now, but I think the conference right now is getting tougher right now for the Eagles, the Cowboys, even to the
Yeah.
Commanders and the Giants. So give it a thought of what can be explained about for the game between the New York Giants versus Las Vegas Raiders. Do you think that defense and the offense could be like improve a lot better?
I don't think we're going to see what we had. I mean, last time was a 40-0 annihilation of the Giants by Dallas. I don't think we're going to see something quite that bad. I mean, I know the spread is the largest we've seen this year in the NFL. I think the spread was at 17.5 points, I think is what it is now for when it opened on Monday. The problem is, for those who don't know, Jones is gone for the year. Tyrod Taylor's gone for at least the next 4 to 6 weeks. Tommy DeVito is our quarterback. Matt Barkley's the backup. Tommy DeVito just read an insane article today. Still lives with his parents. God bless. Good man. It's funny. His mom still does his wash. His mom still does his wash, makes his dinner for him. It's kind of funny. I guess some of the other players have been into his house and met his parents. But the issue is, man, we've got Evan Neal out at right guard, with right tackle, which no loss there. He's been terrible this year. Banks has been okay. I mean, thankfully, we still have, I mean, on defense, we still got, I mean, big, sexy Dexter Lawrence is having an all-pro year. Saquon is Saquon. He'll do it. As long as he's healthy, he's going to do what he can do. Maybe we can score 2 touchdowns. I mean, I'm seeing something like along the lines of like a 30-14 drubbing of the Giants today. I would be honest. I will be shocked if they get more than one win the rest of the way. They always play the Commanders very tough. So I could see them pulling off an upset of the Commanders later on, in the year. The problem is, what are they playing for? Right now, we're playing for draft picks. I mean, I've been a diehard Giants fan since 1985. So I go back a ways. I mean, the first real season that I watched was the 86 Super Bowl run. That was the first. That's how far back I go. I mean, I'm a Giants, Mets, Knicks, and Rangers fan. Diehard New York. I'm down in North Carolina now, but I still bring my New York fandom with me. And my son, as you know, Logan over at LGC Productions, Logan is a diehard New York sports fan. The problem is, what are we looking forward to? I mean, they have not shown the strength of having a number one receiver. DeVito has only started taking first team snaps exclusively this week. I mean, what are they expecting? If they're lucky, they'll get 150 to 180 yards out of DeVito. Maybe he picks up 20 or 30 rushing because they got to run a little bit. He's not fast, but he knows how to scramble if he has to. The problem we've had all year with the Giants offensive line, and that's why Jones is down with the neck injury first and now the ACL, and that's why Tyrod Taylor went down with the rib injury, is there's no protection. They are averaging, believe it, at one point they were averaging 2.4 seconds of pocket for the quarterbacks. They were getting slaughtered. I mean, Jones, Don't get me wrong, he had a fantastic rookie season. Yeah, he had a lot of fumbles, 18 fumbles, which can be fixed. And you notice last year he had a nice year. It wasn't great. Would I have given him $140 million over 4 years? Absolutely not. To me, you should have franchised him and signed Saquon to a long-term 3 or 4 year deal. So they made a mistake, and they're going to have to address that this offseason. To me, you're looking, is it going to be Caleb Williams, Drake May, Bo Nix? Jaden Daniels maybe later in the first or second round if they can get him. It all depends on how high they pick. So to me, the important thing to look out today for the Giants is, can they keep it close and not get blown out? And how do the young guys perform? I think Okereke and McFadden have become really good starting linebackers in this league. The defense isn't the problem. I mean, they've straightened around their problems they had the first 3 weeks. They got blown out the first 3 weeks, but they've kept everything fairly tight since then. Like I said, you've got a handful of all pros. I think you could see an all pro season be his second for Lawrence. You're going to have possibly one from Okereke. Thankfully, Adoree Jackson is out today for us. It gives the young guys a more of a chance to play. And Adoree Jackson's been, let's put it blank, he's been garbage this year. So
Yeah,
it's just tough. I mean, trying to find good things to look forward to me, not today, tomorrow. But it's going to be a growing season. How do the young guys perform? How do they evolve? That's all I can say about that one, man. It's going to be a tough watch if you're a Giants fan. Hopefully, my furniture. I am past the age of getting mad about this team. But Logan, I've had a couch or two or a chair or two destroyed. He's young.
yeah,
I get it. I'm going to tell him next time he's going to have to get a job to replace his furniture. But I still sport my colors. I am a proud, like I said, Giants, Knicks, Mets, and Rangers fan. So even though I haven't had much to cheer about past couple.
yeah, exactly. So I would tell it for anything because the last year they had Brian DeBall as a manager, but right now it seems like because the last year they just went 7 wins and 2 losses, but right now it seems like 2 wins and 7 losses. I mean, that was
Yeah.
really complicated for the New York sports. And I know that it's happening for the Giants because they have balance between the running back Saquon Barkley, the wide receiver, also the quarterback of Daniel Jones. I mean, that could have happened if because the defense is showing well, but it needs to improve a lot more because
Yeah.
the last year they just went to the playoffs with 7 wins and 2 losses. Now the last year at this season, it means like it's very complicated if they had a tough competition with the Philadelphia Eagles, also the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Commanders. But it seems that the Eagles taking like a lot of advantage of this season right now because I know they have like Jalen Hurts, also they got Jason Kills and about the defense right now, but it seems that the conference that they had to it, they had a lot of tough competition with
Yeah.
these 4 teams between New York Giants, Washington Commanders, also Philadelphia Eagles, and Dallas Cowboys. So it
I
might be the
mean,
good for those tough competition.
look at last year. I mean, the entire division was separated by less than 3 games. I mean, you had
Mm-hmm.
the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Giants all made the playoffs last year. And let's be honest, the Giants shouldn't have had more than 6 wins last year. Everything that could have gone right for them last year went right. And I think we all got our hopes up. I initially called for the Giants to be an 11-win team this year. Man, was I wrong. I think we were just overhyped. Dable is a good coach. Kafka, I have questions about as an offensive coordinator. I love Wink Martindale, but he's got to dial back the blitz because he's leaving them wide open in the secondary. When the secondary gets coverage, you see a lot of sacks between Lawrence. Thibodeau is coming to his own this year. Thibodeau is a top 5 pass rusher this year. Dexter is right now the highest ranked interior defensive lineman in the entire league with a 92.3 PFF rating. So to me, we've got the key components to a team that is on the rise, but it's going to be another rough year. And if what I think they're going to do is draft a quarterback next year, expect another rough year next year. But the problem is we've had 4 coaches over the past 8 years. You've got to let Dable and Shane at the GM spot. You've got to let them build this team. I have faith in them that they can do it, but it's gonna take 3 or 4 years to see this thing turned around. Especially now that even if Jones comes back week 9, week 10 next year, and they let him go after next year, you're still looking at $22 million in dead cap space the following year. You're gonna have to eat $80 million over the last 2 years of his contract, and that's going to affect the cap. So we have, I mean, don't get me wrong, we've had a lot of good players come in the draft. Some of the late round picks have been nice. I mean, no all pros yet, but I mean, Jalen Hyatt could be a really good receiver. It's still early. Wandale Robinson's a nice little gimmick
Mhm.
player. I like him. McFadden looks like a rock star. I mean, he was what, a fifth round draft pick last year, and he is just lighting it up this year at linebacker, opposite of Karake. So I'm happy about that one. Um, Guys, you got to find things to look forward to. I mean, Dallas, this might be their last year with Dak. I don't know if Dak's going to be around next year. Look, Zeke is gone. Zeke's a Patriot now. The Eagles are still on the rise, but they're not as good as they were last year. I still think they're the team to beat in the NFC, which kills me to say that.
Mm.
It kills me. I hate the Eagles. I hate the Cowboys. I respect the Commanders, but I don't like them. You know, and what am I going to do? Uh, I mean,
Yeah.
my pick to upset the Eagles this year is the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions are doing what the Giants are doing now. The Detroit Lions started 2 years earlier, rebuilding that entire team, and they have had some absolute gems in the draft between Amon St. Ra, between Amon Ra St. Brown, between Hutchinson, who's been an absolute beast on the outside defensive line,
Yep.
uh, and you know what, Jared Goff. Who would have thought that Jared Goff would leave the Rams, where he was pedestrian, do okay, and now he is arguably a top five, definitely a top 10 quarterback in the league right now for the Lions because they have a very
Yeah.
high power. I mean, they got Jameer Gibbs. They got so many running backs. It's crazy. And the Giants, unfortunately, only have really one offensive player right now.
Yeah, that's
And
exactly.
I mean, and on top of that, last week Saquon was the emergency quarterback. Imagine that one. So like I said, man, it's tough to watch, but I mean, and I'll be honest, I have not been able to sit through an entire game the past couple weeks. It's just been tough. I mean, I work a lot anyway, but I mean, trying to
Yeah.
figure things out, it's just. I think there are brighter times ahead, and I think with the right front office and with the right managers in place, I think Kafka might have to go. I'm not, but let's see what he can do with a young quarterback. I mean, Jones is also he's taken, I think, the second most hits of any quarterback in 5 years, ever.
Wow.
I mean, I
Wow.
think, well, I mean, it reminds you of like when Peyton Manning started out. Peyton Manning got just lit up his freshman year, his first year in the league. But thankfully, they fixed it. They brought in other guys for the offensive line. They brought in guys like Jeff Saturday to anchor the offensive line at center. I mean, but they also have really, really good Pro Bowl caliber offensive linemen. Um, And you know what? I don't know why we keep missing on the offensive line in the draft. You've got Evan Neal, bust. John Michael Schmitz looks like he could be a good player, but he's been hurt. Andrew Thomas,
Yeah.
absolute rock star. He's a top three. He might even be the best tackle in the left tackle in the league when he's healthy. But right now he's top 3 or 4. But the guards, I don't know. Do you move Evan Neal to right guard next year? I would almost say put him at left guard, team him up with Andrew Thomas on the left hand side, get some real size on the left hand side. But I don't even know if he's too tall to play guard. I mean, he's 6'5", 6'6". Most guards you see are around that 6'2", 6'3"
Mhm.
category. He might almost be too big. And really, he hasn't shown me anything. The guy has a terrible kick step. The guy cannot get back in protection. Um, I played offensive line for a couple of years in college and defensive, mostly
Wow.
primarily defensive. But he just looks very weak in standard protection. I mean, you've probably heard Logan talk about he should have taken.
Yeah.
And there's Logan. There he is. But
Oh man.
yeah, we have a guest star. But you've probably seen him. God,
I was really shocked right now. I was really shocked right now. But right now, let's get to another topic because I know it's gonna be fantastic for the basketball team. But right now, let's talk about for the New York Knicks. I mean, the Knicks has been like an amazing stop, and they just the record. It might be not impressive at all for the first glance. If you take a look at it, the difficulty at the start of the state, it's not to discard it. It becomes like the most toughest schedules through like 8 games, and those opponents are only the Spurs went to a postseason team a year ago. But right
yeah,
now, the Knicks have been the hold for the Hornets at the Garden at the next 12 games. But behalf of that, RJ Barrett is off to a fantastic start, and most importantly, to the
Definitely,
parent team.
definitely.
It's like an all six game. It's like at the small symbol size, but the 23-year-old win is shooting like at a where it was 25% for the 3-point rate. And last year, he just shot a career worst 31% from deep. And typically, like a
Yeah,
little slow starter, but it came like a slow story in the FIBA World Cup playing for Canada. I mean, look at this because he thought that the first half of the last year they had to try figure it out, and he tried to like in the second half, he just figured out they wear it off. Tom Thibodeau, they said he's gonna be like a stronger finish contract, a lot of better. He's being gifted. So
yeah.
tell me about these thoughts about RJ Barrett is gonna be like a slow start for the New York Knicks.
Like I said, I mean, he was amazing in the was it the World Games they have for basketball. He played great for Canada. Um, had a slow start to this year. The Knicks in general are always been slow starters. Even going, I mean, I'm a Ewing and Starks guy, Larry Johnson. I mean, talk about Charles Oakley. That's how far back I go. Um, but they're getting there. I mean, I think they made a great signing with Brunson last year, and Brunson and Barrett together are amazing. I love having Mitchell Robinson up front, guarding the paint. Guy's an offensive rebounding machine. Barrett, I think, has the ability to be an all-star. Is he there yet? I don't know. I think he's very close. Um, I do see as the season goes on, Randall was hurt at the beginning of the year with his ankle. You saw Barrett pick up a lot of the slack. Brunson had a very poor game against the Spurs, but the rest of the team they lit up Wabanyama and the rest of the Spurs. I mean, they were up by 26 points at one point late in the third quarter. I turned it off. My God, they're going to just coast the rest of the way. Barrett, he's a favorite of mine. Maybe between him and IQ, man, I don't know who I like more, but Barrett just when he wants, he's the guy you want to stick the dagger in. Him and Brunson are the two guys I want shooting the ball the most. Randall has become better and not being a complete ball hog, and on top of that, the offense has not run through Randall anymore. Excuse me. But the
Mhm.
problem I've seen in the playoffs is that right now they are a perennial playoff team. They will be anywhere between a third and a sixth seed. With this team, they can make the playoffs every year in the East because we all know the East is pretty weak, other than Milwaukee and the Sixers and the Heat. I'll give the Heat are good too. Um,
Mm.
the Heat, even though we should have beat the Heat, that they had our number. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I go back to, like I said, the Alonzo Mourning, Patrick Ewing showdowns in the early '90s, but it's Miami has a very sore spot in my mind. I'm just not a big Miami Heat fan because I Patrick Riley leaving the Knicks to go there. But like I said, I think Barrett, with another year of growth under his belt, will be an all-star next year. You can probably put it down that he will be. Granted, it's a tough position to be an all-star because there's a lot of talent at that position in the league. But as I was saying, Randall needs to dial it back. I don't think I see Randall back next year. I could see him getting traded. There is also possibilities of Embiid being on the way here. So let's cut into that one. If Joel Embiid comes here from the Sixers, we become automatically the second best team behind the Bucks because the Bucks with Giannis and Lillard, that is a crazy
Wow.
team. But the
Yeah.
Knicks, if they get Embiid, they're going to have to give up Randall. They're going to have to give up either IQ or Barrett. Hopefully Q, not Barrett. I think they need Barrett if they get Embiid. But the prospective trades I've seen on the table are Embiid straight up with God, I forget who the shooting guard was that they had for Randall, Robinson, either IQ or Barrett, and 2 draft picks. Because the Knicks also have, I
Mm.
think they have 8 or 9 draft picks the next 2, 3 years. I mean, they've done a nice job for the longest time. The Knicks couldn't bring anybody in because they had no cap space and no one wanted to play for New York. Thibodeau has brought back a defensive first minded team. They have always been in the top 10 in defense since Thibodeau's been there. They are respectable now. They were the laughing stock. I don't know how the heck they made the playoffs with
Yeah.
Spreewell and with Stoudemire. They did it once or twice. Um, but he has brought back respectability to New York. And even if Thibodeau doesn't stick around for a couple more years, I owe him thanks because at least we're no longer. I mean, we were a laughing stock for how many years? Absolutely brutal. And the Nets were the talk of the town.
Yeah.
Now the Nets are on the downslide, and the Knicks are back up. So As they said on the video you saw last year, season opener, bing bong, the Knicks are back, man.
Yeah, and also I just want to see for the Knicks having an impressive record. I mean, it could have happened like this one because he thought it's gonna happen to figure it out about for the defense and all this stuff. He's getting like a struggle, but he's right now finishing the contract a lot of better because he always been like a very gifted passer, but it allows it to open in the door for the team Knicks. But I think it's gonna happen like a lot of this one, but. I think this is just move on for the Nets and last topic because right now it is Saturday afternoon, but which means on Saturday, well, it happens since on Saturday because it's time for the combat sports. And we're talking
Nice.
about a little bit of the UFC 295, which is on the Madison
Hmm.
Square Garden New York, which originally they had Jones versus Steve Miocic, but right now they have Prochazka versus Pereira. Also, they got Tom Aspinall versus Sergey Pavlovich. I mean, what can happen to this one? Because Sergey Pavlovich, Tom Aspinall, they have been amazing fighters. But in my point right now, Pereira has been like a master of grappling because if you see like at the fighters at the octagon for the UFC, if Derek Lewis is the master of the knockouts, then Alice Pereira is the master of grappling. They might be careful about Jiri right now, but it seems that they had a lot of things in common for the fighters of the octagon. So give your thoughts about the UFC 295, which is on today night on
Yep,
Madison
I will be
Square
watching.
Garden.
I will be watching. Now, I'll be honest, man. I was a boxing fan first and foremost. I did not get into UFC until you guys, you, my son, Nate, a couple other guys out there, kind of convinced me to turn on to UFC. So I
Mm.
knew that very early UFC fighters. I knew the guys like who am I talking about here? It doesn't matter at this point. I mean, I go back old school for UFC. We're talking UFC 1 through 50 here
Oh,
and
the
there.
old school UFC right now
Oh
for the
yeah,
decade of the two decade of 2000, decade of 2010, over like the decade of the 90s.
yep. I mean, so like me, I'm just getting back into UFC now. So it's been about 6 months. I have watched it religiously with my son. I know what's going on. Because I saw the Izzy and Strickland fight. I can't wait for the Strickland DDP fight coming up next month. That's going to be amazing. Pereira, you're right. The guy is a grappling machine. He's amazing. Um, I'm really bummed out we couldn't see the Jones Stipe fight. That would have been a real. I couldn't wait to see a nice
Yeah,
heavyweight battle in that one. But you know
yeah,
what?
that's
It is
right.
what it is. Like I said, I'm still learning the UFC right now. To me, I'm just purely an enjoyment road. No enjoyment road. I get to see as an older guy, I get to see it from a new perspective because I get to compare it to all the old guys like the Chuck Liddells and
Oh,
I
yes.
mean, so to me, seeing like seeing these guys, I mean, Masvidal, amazing. Trying to see some of these fighters coming from overseas now that I had never even seen Korean Zombie till 2 months ago. And Logan's like, dude, you're missing out. Even though he's not a top fighter, he's a top draw. The guy's an amazing. It's like going back and watching. It's like watching Oscar De La Hoya back in the '90s, or watching Roy Jones Jr.
Oh,
For boxing. Uh, Boxing
wow.
is so bad now. I mean, I go back. I've seen Pernell Whitaker. I've seen Mike Tyson in his prime when he was fighting back in the '80s. I've seen the refunds. I've seen all the old Muhammad Ali fights, and I've seen all the old. I mean, Sugar Ray Leonard. Uh, you name it. So I go back to the old school boxing, but now I really like UFC because it kind of shows you what fighting style is top. I mean, watching that Izzy Strickland fight last month was a game changer for me because you got to see Strickland put on a clinic against Izzy. I mean, Izzy to me is probably the better fighter, but Strickland had him solved in a matter of half a round. So just seeing what he did by delaying, having the unorthodox stance, throwing the jab, working off the jab, throwing the quick kick to the right and then the left, giving a lot of decent gut shots, and surprisingly keeping it fairly off the ground. I was surprised about that because I mean I thought they would want to take it to the ground as quickly as possible because I thought Izzy was going to beat him as far as being a striker. Strickland did it. I mean Strickland had it. He had it just laced up from the beginning. So to me, I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, tonight's I'm not even. I couldn't even tell you what other than Pernod, I couldn't even tell you what the big card is tonight. Like I said, Joe Stipe was going to be the big one. The fact that it's in New York and on East Coast time now, thank God, because the overseas stuff I love seeing, but I don't want to watch UFC 10 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean? I haven't had my coffee yet, so I'm still kind of wait a minute. But just from a purely a MMA fan standpoint, I'm getting much more into it every single week. And I'm looking forward to tonight's fight. It should be a good one. I mean, so far we've had the past few UFC, what, 292, 3, 4, have all been good cards top to bottom. There haven't been any real stinkers of fights. So I've been pretty happy with it. So, like I said, I'll leave the analysis up to you because you know much more than I do at this point. But maybe in 2, 3 months, I can start discussing technique with you because I'll know even more. But and I'm still learning who all the new fighters are.
Yeah, that's exactly because I remember that I was watching the whole fights, and well, my mom and my dad also they grew up watching all these boxing fights during
Mhm.
the 90s and 2000, and I was getting involved with the UFC fights back in 2000, 2010, and that time that I was living at Barquisimeto, Venezuela, which is in South America, and I was
Mhm.
watching the whole UFC fights, and we had cable and we just have it to sort of to pay like a little bit of pay-per-view fights at the UFC.
Yep.
But it reminds me that I was something that I was watching the UFC. They had some fighters like Chuck Liddell, also the guy Nate Diaz, the Diaz brothers. Also, they got Anderson Silva. Also, they got
Yep.
Chanel Sonnen. I mean, I was getting involved with the UFC fights, and then what I was doing in college, I was getting like a writing some stuff for the UFC, the MMA, just like Bellator for a national newspaper, and that blew me away. That blew me away that I was getting to see the attention of the UFC
Yeah.
and boom. And back in 2015, when I was hanging out with my friends at college, what are those shows that it blew me away? Like the fights, it was between Jose Aldo versus Conor McGregor. That was in the prime time. That was like really amazing.
Yeah.
And right now, I have something. Times are changing right now that I'm starting to watching all these UFC fights, and of course, I was getting involved with Lou with the G Nation Inside Sports,
Mhm.
watching all the UFC fights and it blew me away a lot of this, and I was really excited to get in a lot of knowledge about the UFC, also for the boxing. And I had the opportunity to interview some of those boxers and the UFC fighters from South America. That was
Nice.
really impressive. And I was like getting too involved about these fights right now, and it gets because I know about the UFC fights when I was growing up watching as a kid, and
Yeah.
I was getting involved because I was a former Carry Championship when I was a kid. That was just like a 10 years old. That was back in 2003. And I was winning two medals, one for gold for kata and one silver from kumite, which is like the fighting style, like the
I know it.
taekwondo and
I
everything.
have I have done it on occasion. Yeah.
Yeah, but that means there are a lot of things. And right now times are funny because right now the UFC had celebrated 30th anniversary and wow, they had a lot of good fights. They had a lot of shows, and it became lot of countries. And there are some good fighters. It came to along for the generation right now. So right now they got Alexander Volkanovski, they got Sean
Oh,
Strickland,
Volkanovski, he is crazy good.
and he's freaking good because not only he just practiced at the UFC, but also he was like a former rugby player, which is
Yep. Yep.
he knows and understands.
Now, one thing to discuss about UFC coming up too is don't forget I don't know if you heard about the lawsuit going on right now as well. There is a potential 800 million to 1.4 billion dollar lawsuit going on, a class action lawsuit about former UFC competitors against Zuffa, who owns the UFC and WWE. Now, what I've heard that is if UFC loses this lawsuit, they could be out up to $1 billion, and they would have to really change what happens and how they pay their people. Because what I was read a really interesting article. I'll have to send it to you the other day. Most boxers, when they go through their fights, they typically see 40 to 50% of the gross profits off of a fight. UFC fighters only see 16 to 19%. So that's why you have
Wow.
guys. Yeah, I was amazed. So like you see guys like Mayweather in boxing. Yeah, guy's a
Mhm.
great boxer, one of the best. I mean, I'm not a Mayweather fan. It's a cocky little son of a never mind. But you know what? The guy's great. You got to admit that one. I mean, I go back to like I used to watch the Arturo Gatti Mickey Ward fights, some in the early 2000s. Those are some of the greatest fights I've ever seen. But you talk about, you wonder why Mayweather is worth not just millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, because he's cleaning up 25 to 50 million per fight. Now, you look at guys like Sean Strickland, when he beat Izzy last month or 2 months ago, his first thing he did when he got out was go to Walmart and buy jeans and a t shirt. So you're talking about the scale difference. Now, don't get me wrong, Dana White has done an incredible job since he took over the UFC and made it probably, what do you think now? Probably the third biggest sport in the world behind football and basketball. And the US, definitely. Don't forget soccer worldwide, too. I know that. But it's a top 5 sport worldwide now when they were unheard of 30 years ago. So I give them credit for doing that. But now you're seeing that they've had a monopoly on all the money over the past 25 years. Guys not making anything. Like I wrote an article the other day. Royce Gracie at UFC 1 took on one punch or one glove. What was his name? I forget. He was a former boxer. They brought him in, and he was the highest paid member of the UFC 1 card. His gross earnings from UFC 1 was $12,000.
Wow.
Yeah, and you look at that now. These guys like Korean Zombie, who just retired, his final fight, I think he made $750,000, which is still low compared to boxers. You can get like some scrub heavyweight fighter, or you bring in the welterweights who are slam packed. Like you look at Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, who fought a couple months back, and Spence actually got stripped of the title yesterday because he wouldn't do an automatic redefense of the title. But Spence made, I think, $12 million in that fight, and the loser made $6 million. And UFC guys, the top champions in UFC, maybe McGregor in his prime. He's not in his prime anymore. Maybe guys like Masvidal, maybe guys like Pereira can probably command a pretty good salary. Stipe and John Jones, some other guys who are really the big name people, maybe they can get $500,000, $750,000 per fight. But boxers are still getting, even though boxing is not in its heyday anymore, boxing has gone downhill because the quality of fighters are now leaving boxing. Either becoming mixed martial artists and joining the UFC, joining Bellator. They used to be in Pride back in the late 2000s when Pride was open up and over in Southeast Asia. So the dearth of boxers that were around when I was growing up. I mean, I remember watching Saturday afternoon boxing on ABC. It doesn't exist anymore. You can't watch boxing on network TV anymore. It doesn't exist. Now, if you have Hulu, if you have ESPN, you can watch UFC 3 to 4 days a week. I mean, I have learned so much about UFC just in the past 6 months because of the sheer content of quantity out there. So to me, it's one of the easiest sports to get into, as long as you don't mind the occasional little bloodbath here and there. I mean, you're gonna see some rough fights. I mean, if you're in a weak stomach, don't do it. But for most of us, it's exciting. It's fun. I mean, we'll sit here, my son, my wife, me, even my daughter's not be watching the fights. But it's almost a family affair nowadays because UFC is, you don't need to understand it or understand the technique to enjoy a decent fight.
Yeah, they had to go
That's
for
the way
it.
I see it. So we'll see what happens. I mean, the lawsuit could be big. There's also another lawsuit going on with now for a couple $100 million, and also a class action lawsuit between, I think, 4 or 5 other fighters who are claiming fraud. UFC could have a rough couple of years ahead of it, but for right now, man, let's just enjoy it while it lasts because it's doing very, very well.
Yeah, that's exactly. And of course, it became like a lot of things could happen because when I was living in my country, Venezuela, we just watching all the boxing and cable TV, and we just had to pay like at a pay-per-view and all these
Yep.
stuff right now, including for the UFC because they all for the depend for the broadcasting rights. And of course, we had to watch HBO for the boxing fights on Saturday night, and that was really amazing. We had to pay like a I think that was sort of like a $40 sort of the pay-per-view with all these boxing and MMA fights like that. And it could have happened like this one because not only United States had to go pay, but also in other countries, the whole world, to just watching for the broadcasting rights. And also they had to form an alliance to go for the transmission of all these fights right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I just wanted to tell you them, thanks, Mr. Corey, for giving us their thoughts about the NFL basketball and all these stuff like boxing, MMA. So Thank you very much for having us for this special episode of Let Him Speak with Capitán Rafucho. So, Corey, last thoughts. Where can people find out on the social media and can find you also your content?
Well, I actually do two things right now. Social media, I am pretty much exclusively doing, I do IT training is what I do. I had a former channel called the Big Bald Azure Guy, which was doing all online cloud training, different things like that. And I was doing very well, but I was sick
Hmm.
last year, took some time off. I'm now rebranding. I am now launching a new channel called Informed News and Sports. It'll be current events, tech news, and of course, sports, my favorite topic of all. That's
Yep.
going to be launching sometime in the next few weeks. You can find me online at Informed News and Sports. You can check out. You and I will connect as well, and we'll get you on my channel. And if you take a look at my son's channel as well, LGZ Productions, you can see him on there. I will send you my links so you can put them in the description here. But man, anytime you want to have me back, I really enjoyed it, man. We always have good conversations, man. So it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's been like a pleasure. And like I said, folks, it's been like a special episode of Let Him Speak with El Capitan Rafael. El Capitan Rafucho, as known as Rafael Chacin. So my social media is Twitter, Instagram at Capitan Rafucho. Also on my YouTube channel, which is I almost had the process to say it up. I just made to the 800 subscribers. And right now I almost go to the 1K subscribers on my YouTube channel. So you
We'll
gotta
get
stay
you there,
tuned.
man. We'll get you there.
Yeah. So even though that my channel is getting a bar for the Raiders, also with a lot of things in sports. So thank you very much. And of course, it's been like an amazing episode. So my name is Rafael Chacines, no es el Capitan Rafucho. I will see you there at the next time on Let Us Speak. So have a good one, folks. So,
Take care, man.
yep.